Hey everyone, it's Manera, and today we are drawing still life with charcoal. The reference photo here is over to the left in this here we are that we're drawing, and today I'm going to be using Derwent tinted charcoal. I have forest pine, peat, and lavender, and although there's both three very neutral colors, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. The interesting part to me is the lavender color looks really very gray, but I'm really going to start out with peat. So let's put these over to the side. So let's take a look at the composition of what's here, and I can kind of see through the back of my page for this, the lines that are here to kind of make my border. So I'm going to stick within that. Now, if you take a look at this composition that's here, we have this one glass vase. I'm going to call it a vase, and I'm going to call this a canning jar, as it is. And there's a pear, or maybe that's a fig. And we're going to concentrate on the grays and the lights and the darks in this, and really just kind of talk about the shadows as we are shading this with color with charcoal. Now, if you take a look at this, the rhythm that's created is this is tall, and then it just kind of goes down here, down to the fig, and then back up. So you can think of it that way, or you can just think of it just being on an angle. Some people like to start out with creating a rectangle and then drawing within that rectangle. Again, here, much wider rectangle than this to get that proportion going. And then this fig, I'm going to call it a fig. I think it's a fig. So I'm going to just kind of give out like a skeleton of what's happening. So here is my, just to kind of lay out the composition, okay? And then these are also lines that we can completely take away. So this is the area that this taller glass vase will be drawn in. And then this is kind of overlapping just a little bit. So let's, and it's probably about a third of the way down. It's not half, it's about a third. So I'm gonna just kind of overlap it just a tiny bit. And it does lay down in the forefront. So here is the rectangle there. And then this object, fig is what we're going to call it, is you can see it's probably about, again, a third of the way up, maybe a quarter of the way up on this. So we want to kind of give this the best proportion as far as the size of the objects. We don't want to make the fig look gigantic and I mean, that would look kind of like Halloween scary, right? So we don't want it to kind of look like that. But this is kind of sitting here. And then maybe here is where the water that's in that jar kind of sits. We've got our table kind of going in the background there. All right, so we've got kind of our skeleton that's here. So the first thing I'm going to do is start out with what belongs in this rectangle. We've got the mouth of the glass vase right here at the top. So let's just kind of sketch that out a little bit. And again, I'm using this this peat colored tinted charcoal. Now it doesn't go all the way to the end of it. And the other thing is that this rectangle becomes kind of like the placement. It works as the placement of it. So now I kind of have the shoulders of the jar, of the vase. And they're kind of angular with a little bit of a roundness to it. So you want them to be symmetrical or as symmetrical as you can. And then as we come down to this part here, it does kind of get a little bit rounded. And then we've got our water here. So there's that ellipse that we're kind of swinging in there. And this kind of goes right below it, and then this kind of comes up over here. So this stem of it is very long. It's probably about half the size of the actual fig, right? And then we want this to kind of maybe be bulging out just a little bit more. So there's my kind of my baseline as far as there's my jar, okay? Now let's see what's happening with the canning jar. Now I know that most of you are going to blow me away with what you're able to do with this, right? So we've got this kind of tucking in, and we've got kind of a, we're going to see what's going on behind the scenes here, behind that glass, and this is kind of bulging out a little bit, but not so much. And it is going kind of behind the fig. I'm going to make it go kind of like right there. Kind of coming around. Okay, now let me see about a kneaded eraser, because we want to be able to get rid of any of the lines that we don't want, to kind of make it a little more visible. So remember, that was just kind of my skeleton of what had happened there. And we've got this one right here also. So you can already see the difference as we start to take away some of the lines that were there. Okay, now we've got this little metal clasp, and we're going to work on that at the end. So let's talk about what's happening here. So this part right here, I'm going to kind of darken what's here and darken what's back there. Now, we talk about the unfinished line a lot, and how the power of the unfinished line. You know, when you're working with charcoal, it's all about kind of a looser sketch. And I think a lot of you kind of know that, right? It's a more of a looser sketch. So here's this line that's coming down. So we don't want to draw with it like we were drawing with a pencil. We just want to kind of get in the, you know, the, I want to say illusion, but you want to give an indication that that is, that's what's there, that there's the shadow that's there. We don't want the line to be crisp. We want it to almost just kind of blend into one another. So it's a sketchy type of way of drawing. Now, the other thing is that I'm holding my pencil very light, because this is very loose. So I want it to be held loose enough that I can not have a harsh line. So now look inside this water. I'm going to take away what's there, because I want that to be the lightest. We'll work on that fig in a minute. But there's another line that comes down here. You can see in the reference photo. It's darker than the rest. And then if you kind of look at the bottom part of this, there is kind of a sharp line there, and there's a sharp line here. Kind of like the ridges of it all. And we want it to kind of just blend into itself. We wanted to see that easy transition. So we've got that transition there. And then we're going to just come up here, and then this is the darkest, is this fig. There is a line here. Now, this opening here with this water, right? We've got to put a little bit of we want it to kind of like, we want to pull this color down. And then this fig, you can see that kind of like right here, there's that kind of like shape of maybe where it would be the darkest. And then here right at the bottom would kind of be the lightest. Just how it is, as far as the like the colors of it are helping to make up that type of shadows, those types of shadows. So this part right here, I'm just going to kind of, I don't want it to be too like scratchy, so that's why I'm going as loose as possible. And then as I come up here, we want this to kind of be a medium. We've got this here and this here, so we kind of want to be like this, more like that, to kind of make that a little crisper. There's another line here, another line here. So it's all kind of the reflections of the glass. I'm actually going to kind of pop my, hold my pencil so it's kind of on an angle on its side. So we've got all of that filled in there. And then as we come around here, how do we identify what's happening here, right? So here is the lightest portion of it, which is kind of like where that begins. I'm going to add a crisper line here, because we want to see those ridges in this particular one. And it kind of shifts a little bit as far as the way the canning jar is. Do you notice that? So we want to be able to kind of go, kind of like flick it in. And then this part right here is kind of darker. Now, I don't know what's in this, but say it's a candle or it's full, whatever's in it is full. Look at right here, there's kind of a little bit of a darker section. And this is going to come down a little bit more. So I'm going to get rid of this shape here because I was kind of like following what was there. Notice how light it is here. We want to make sure that that's really light. And we can kind of see what's underneath it. So I'm just going to fill the rest of it in, and then I'm going to start to take away what is there because it's pretty solid, don't you think? It's pretty filled. Pretty full. Is that the word I'm looking for? It's pretty full. If I just kind of start blending from the bottom up, remember I want to take away that little bit that's down at the bottom there. I'm going to just kind of pull this in here. And again, we've got this kind of light section here. Just kind of pull away from there. It's weird how like it's very, very light here, very, very light here, where you would kind of think it would be the darkest corner. Doesn't it look like that would be typically the darkest corner of it? Let's see what we can do with the fig. We want to make it so that it is in the front, right? We want to make sure that it is actually in the foreground of everything that is there. I'm going to take my kneaded eraser, just kind of tap, 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 tap. And even in the background here, because this is very, very, very light back here. Even in this little section here. It's weird how that is what is typically the darkest corner of something. And it's becoming lighter, the lightest part. So now we've got this section that's here, which is the metal. So I just want to kind of draw as I see it. And it's still kind of like a little bit, here's this that comes around, this goes like this. This is coming out. And what's behind there is very light. So let me pull all that away. Again, kind of identify where the edge is there. And then we've got the table that's kind of in the back. So I'm just going to pull away. We've got that dark line here, but all below here it gets much lighter, and then it becomes darker down here. Of course, a darker section right underneath that fig. Again, we want to just kind of give this a now, you could also seal this with hairspray or Some people like to use a workable fixative as they're working. I'm not using that, especially when I am doing a video, when I'm recording something. It's really difficult to start to use a fixative. And notice how there's kind of a white line there. Well, not really a white line, but it's a lighter. I'm just going to kind of give that a little bit of a textured wall. And that's it. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. The only other thing I might do to this, let's do that actually. I'm just going to kind of tap this where the water is and put another line in here to make it look like it's more. And the reason why I tapped it was because I wanted it to kind of blend. And that is finished. Can't wait to see your finished drawing for this. It's going to be exciting. Thanks so much.